Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into the remnants of history to understand not just what happened, but, well, why it still defines so much of the present.
And today our subject is the Vaal.
The Vaal. It's a name that just it evokes ruin, doesn't it? But their actual legacy is so much more complex and, frankly, terrifying than a simple collapse.
It really is.
We're diving deep into the remnants of an empire that reached these dizzying heights of sophistication only to be defined by its ultimate, very dark paradoxes.
And this is a deep exploration tailor-made for you. What we've gathered here is it's a chilling mosaic. It details their rapid ascent, their truly unsettling cultural practices.
Right.
And I think most importantly, we have the direct, immediate, and often agonizing testimony of the cosmic forces, the very impulse of chaos that dictated their ultimate brutal fate.
That's the wild part. We are essentially cross-referencing ancient texts with the personal journal of an immortal being. So we're not just looking at dusty tablets here. Our sources include, the dedicated, painstaking academic notes of scholars like Ishus Perandus and Aramir. These are the people who studied the ruins and tried to make rational sense of the Vaal.
But then you have the other side of it.
Yes, the other side. We also have the terrifying first-hand account of the trial master himself, an immortal entity whose existence spans millennia and, more unsettlingly, spans multiple realities.
So our mission today is to try and extract the chilling truth of what truly happened at the end of the Vaal era. We have to reconcile this shocking contrast between their highly advanced technology and their violent, brutal societal norms.
How did they live with that dissonance?
That's the question. And ultimately, we have to analyze this intense, philosophical, cosmic battle between the two universal impulses, chaos and order, that demanded and resulted in the empire's total self-sacrifice. This isn't just history.
No.
It's a living testament to the conflict between free will and destiny, where the price of survival was the civilization itself.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to start at the top, right? The Golden Age. When the Vaal were truly the masters of their domain.
The absolute peak.
We're talking about a time when historical chronicles weren't just favorable, they were unequivocal. The Vaal were simply the height of civilization, and their future was bright. That was it. End of story.
And that power, that brightness, was underpinned by just unprecedented material wealth. A lot of it was extracted through pure economic dominance. Ishus Perandus, his records focus heavily on commerce and artifact valuation, and he confirms this.
What do his records say?
He notes that trade with what they considered lesser cultures, he specifically names the Marraketh and the early Karui, resulted in their vaults literally overflowing with golden trinkets and elegant jewels.
So they were the global economic engine.
Completely. They commanded massive stockpiles of wealth and, crucially, superior advanced knowledge. They had both.
And when you visualize these cities, Utsal, Etzoal, you get this picture of glittering halls, immaculate engineering, systems of irrigation and architecture that just defined elegance. The sources confirm they were a culture dedicated to science and progress. They had mastered things others couldn't even dream of. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Because that bright, rational image gets shattered.
Fundamentally, violently shattered by a contradiction that's just embedded deep within their social core.
And the dissonance is profound. I think we have to slow down and really wrestle with this for a moment. Aramir, he's a scholar who focused on societal structures. He notes that while they were technologically highly advanced, the Vaal were simultaneously rather brutish in their social practices.
And this isn't just a difference in customs we're talking about?
Not at all. It's a profound philosophical schism. I mean, how does a society capable of complex mathematics and flawless engineering disciplines built on precision, on logic, on predictability, how do they maintain a core based on savagery?
That's the question that must have driven the scholars mad. But surely a society with that level of rational, large-scale engineering, they wouldn't need constant public blood sacrifice, would they? What were the initial theories on that?
Initially, you can imagine the theories. People probably suggested these were just relics of a forgotten past, that the technology had advanced beyond the religion.
Right, like old traditions they just hadn't gotten rid of yet.
Exactly. But Aramir's evidence it completely refutes that. The baffling image he provides is that the Vaal constructed elaborate sacrificial altars in the centers of their cities.
In the centers, not hidden away.
Right in the middle of everything. So think about that physical layout. The most advanced technological university is across the street from the Grand Library, and right there, in the public square, dominating the sightlines, is this enormous altar dedicated to bloody, primitive ritual.
Wow. That changes the entire emotional feel of their urban life, doesn't it? Those glittering halls weren't just backdrops for prosperity.
They were backdrops for brutality.
It forces this agonizing realization that the ritualism was part of their progress. It wasn't a historical anomaly they tolerated.
It was a necessary component of their science.
Which leads us directly to the technical detail that defines their supremacy.
The mastery of deadly energy.
Which we later learn is codified as corruption.
Right. The Vaal were the first great empire to weaponize this power. They weren't just dabbling in dark magic. They had scientifically integrated a destructive, transforming force into their entire infrastructure.
So what does this deadly energy what does it do? How did they master it technologically?
The sources don't give us a blueprint, unfortunately, but the implication is that corruption allowed them to achieve things that conventional science just couldn't.
Like what?
Things like unnaturally extending lifespans, transforming matter, and most crucially, enhancing the power of the virtue gems. Their engineering prowess, fueled by this quote-unquote deadly energy, allowed them to construct impossible structures, like the massive temporal mechanisms we see the ruins of.
So they found a way to harness fundamental cosmic instability and make it work for them.
Exactly. Their technological genius and their primitive ritualistic core were both aimed at controlling this same terrifying power. It suggests that their progress was always driving towards something inherently corrosive.
Something that required a constant dark price.
Always.
And if the Vaal civilization itself was a study in contradictions, then Queen Tetzalcoatl, she was the living embodiment of that terrifying dark contrast.
Absolutely. Her reign, according to the ruins and the scholarship that followed, marked a high point for certain Vaal cities, at least in terms of their output and architectural scale.
But her persona, it's deeply disturbing. Scholars refer to her as a waif of disturbing proclivity.
That's heavy language to use for a powerful monarch. It suggests her tastes and behaviors weren't just eccentric, they crossed profound boundaries even within the already brutish Vaal society.
She was a known devotee of the entity Arakali, and her central, almost clinical focus was a deep fascination with mortality and the inert human form.
That phrase, inert human form, it sounds like something you'd read in a medical journal. So cold, so scientific.
Exactly. Yet the practice she established was anything but clinical. It was pure, institutionalized horror that targeted the populace at their moment of deepest grief.
And we need to treat this as a literal historical event, something that unfolded daily across Vaal urban centers. The queen would issue a decree. She would request her subjects to deposit the bodies of their deceased loved ones upon the steps of her palace.
Just pause and absorb the weight of that. For the average Vaal citizen,
Yeah.
you've just lost a parent, a child, a spouse. You are in the throes of mourning, navigating this immense personal tragedy, and then the state, the absolute queen, intervenes.
You are forced to perform the most agonizing task,
Yeah.
carrying the body, not to a place of peaceful rest or private ceremony.
No, to the front steps of her home, her seat of power where she sits in this cold, clinical judgment.
The power dynamics are just absolute and humiliating. The grieving populace is forced into compliance. They deposit the corpse. The queen's agents promptly take the bodies inside, and they were used for.
And this is the moment. This is where the historical record, even among these seasoned scholars who dedicated their lives to documenting brutality, it just breaks down.
It does. Aramir notes that most chroniclers, when they were attempting to rationalize or even simply document the purpose of this royal ritual, they fell into hysterical conjecture at that point.
Hysterical conjecture, that's not academic detachment.
Not at all. It's a reaction to unspeakable horror. It tells us that whatever the ultimate purpose was, whether it was related to her devotion to Arakali, her scientific study of transformation using corruption, or some grotesque attempt to manipulate the soul's passage, it was so fundamentally transgressive that it shattered the intellectual and psychological defenses of those recording it.
They just couldn't rationalize the horror.
They couldn't.
And what does this say about the society that tolerated it? I mean, compliance suggests either a fundamental, total belief in the queen's divine right, or
far more likely, absolute terror.
imagine being the person who had to enforce that decree. The guard waiting on the steps, watching the grieving citizens file past. The psychological toll on the average Vaal citizen must have been immense. Living in a society where even private grief was politicized and harvested by a sovereign with disturbing proclivities.
It speaks to the total submission the Vaal lived under. Their grand civilization, their technological peak, was built on a foundation of absolute control. The paradox wasn't just physical sacrificial altars beside libraries, it was psychological.
Rational citizens existing under the rule of clinical, ritualistic terror.
Mm.
And this internal brutality, it contrasts so sharply with the Vaal's external role as cultural founders, which is crucial for understanding the geopolitical scope of their empire.
It's a huge contrast. For centuries, the Vaal were the guiding hand for other cultures, most notably the Asmari.
And this contact happened about 2,500 years ago.
Right. It initiated a process, Trinian records, as a cultural marriage. Before the Vaal arrived, the Asmari were, well, they were primitive. They existed through oral tradition and tribal life. The Vaal literally ushered them into agricultural and literary modernity.
They didn't just offer aid, they fundamentally rewrote the Asmari existence. They were instrumental in transforming them into a cohesive culture of settlement and agriculture. Their written, literary culture blossomed from this interaction.
Allowing for complex record-keeping, history, administration.
Everything. The Vaal literally held the hand of the Asmari as they grew. They were the generous mentors, the benevolent civilization that provided the tools for true societal complexity.
And this relationship was the very definition of regional dominance. The Vaal shared almost everything practical. They established themselves as these indispensable guides. But generosity always has limits, especially when you're dealing with the source of your own unparalleled power. There was one absolutely critical piece of knowledge they actively, strategically withheld,
The secret of the tears of Margie.
which we now recognize as the all-powerful virtue gems.
So despite being these thorough and generous mentors in every practical area, agriculture, literature, statecraft, the Vaal were notably silent on this one topic.
And this wasn't an accident. An exhaustive search confirms there is no account, not even a passing reference, to gem usage or power among the early Asmari records.
But they must have seen them.
Oh, they saw the raw power. The Asmari ancestors observed the Vaal flesh adorned with glittering crystals. They recognized these glowing accessories as symbols of importance and power, but they were never, ever given access to the potentials or powers.
That is an intentional act of strategic betrayal. It's the ultimate power consolidation. Give them enough to be successful, enough to trade with, but withhold the key to true, independent, sovereign might.
You teach them how to build great cities, but you keep the tools for superhuman defense and offense locked away for yourself.
And this strategic secrecy, this knowledge gap, is precisely what makes their eventual decline so stunning. The Vaal maintained this dominance for a full 2 millennia.
A very long time. But the tide turned, and it turned dramatically.
How did the Asmari finally learn the secret?
They only learned the secret of the gems when the first Vaal refugees came knocking 500 years later.
Just think about that reversal. 2,000 years of holding their hand, of being the mentor, and then suddenly the mentor collapses.
It is the absolute marker of their systemic failure. The technologically and economically superior Vaal, the arrogant mentors who raised the Asmari, suddenly show up on the doorstep of their former pupils, desperate, broken, and needing refuge.
They went from being the mighty handholder to being the supplicant.
In a matter of centuries, it forced this advanced culture to beg for the secrets they once guarded from the very people they guided. This places the collapse firmly after centuries of regional dominance. It's the moment their own strategic secrets came back to haunt them.
So now we need to shift focus. We move from the geopolitical timeline of the empire to a specific, intense cultural practice that just speaks volumes about the Vaal's relationship with fate, power, and the cosmic forces that underpin their society.
The trials of chaos.
This temple wasn't just some side location, was it? It was central to their belief system and their political advancement.
Absolutely central. We know the Temple of Ordeals was located on the outskirts of Utsal, but its structure tells a story. It was described as a door in the jungle depths, but crucially it was far older than Utsal and built on higher terrain.
That's a fascinating architectural and historical detail. So being older than the Vaal capital itself and physically elevated, that indicates extreme antiquity and spiritual significance.
It suggests the Vaal Empire didn't create this structure.
They found it, they recognized its power, and they built their civilization around this existing potent structure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This structure wasn't a postscript to Vaal religion. It was the foundation upon which their entire meritocracy was built. The purpose, according to the trial master's direct testimony, was paramount. This once mighty temple was the bridge from mere peasant to high priest.
The ultimate brutal rite of passage, a system of absolute life or death meritocracy.
And the prize was profound. It wasn't just status, it was power. Those who achieved true victory were gifted a small measure of power to help forge their own destinies.
In a society obsessed with fate and power, that was the ultimate currency, a pathway to seizing control over your own narrative.
And what's fascinating here is the universal invitation juxtaposed with the deadly risk. The trials were inclusive. All challengers were welcome, regardless of wealth or station.
Which kind of flies in the face of the brutal monarchical control we saw under Queen Tetzalcoatl.
It does. It implies a fiercely competitive cultural belief in individual talent and merit, something that transcended the usual stratification of Vaal society.
But only for those willing to risk everything.
Everything. The challenger pool was truly vast and varied. The trial master notes those who attempt the trials include scholars, criminals, heroes, and the meek. It was the great equalizer, the proving ground for anyone seeking influence in the Vaal world, is where ambition went to live or die.
But the stakes were absolute. The trial master issues this stern, immutable warning that transcends millennia.
The rules never change for them, and the rules will not change for you. Bring only that which you can afford to lose, including your life.
So why? Why maintain a system that consumes so much potential? Why would they require a system where the overwhelming majority of participants fail?
Because the goal isn't mass improvement. The goal is extreme distillation. The final, terrifying outcome is that most have fallen. This system was designed to cultivate rare, shocking talent that amused chaos by consuming the ordinary.
So the trial was a meat grinder for ambition.
A meat grinder, designed to ensure only the most ruthless, the most skilled, and the most unpredictable survive to wield power in a civilization that was constantly dancing with deadly energy.
It's not a test of endurance, then. It's a crucible of fate. The promise of forging their own destinies comes with the clear understanding that that destiny is overwhelmingly likely to be a violent death that only serves as entertainment for a cosmic impulse.
And to truly understand the psychological weight of the trial, we have to look at individual experiences. The accounts of the survivors are the ruthless. The Chronicle of Atalui provides a perfect example of the stark, self-assessed consequences of success and failure within this brutal system.
Atalui confirms she did not undertake the trial alone, which immediately establishes that this was a competitive event, a field of rivals navigating the jungle depths and the ancient structure simultaneously. She notes she did emerge a victor and earned the ultimate prize, the role of high priestess, as is custom.
So that validates the system's promise. Success equals profound advancement. But Atalui is painfully clear and utterly detached about the cost of failure.
What should she say?
She states that those with less willpower and skill earned a less important role, namely being dead with the rest of the chaff.
Chaff. That word is chilling. It completely dehumanizes the failed aspirants. They aren't heroes who died trying to seize their destiny.
They're just useless byproduct, swept away by the brutal requirements of chaos. Atalui uses this harsh self-assessment to stress her own worth and skill, contrasting herself, the high priestess, with the anonymous discarded dead. Her survival required that level of ruthless conviction.
And that ruthlessness brings us to the most significant case study of all, Doriani.
The man who was later cited as the one who caused the fall of the empire. But his path to power began in this very trial. Atalui urges us to ask him about his trial, saying his strategy caused quite the stir.
Caused quite the stir. That suggests a controversial, unorthodox approach. Given the trial master's rules and the deadly stakes, what kind of strategy could that have been? It must have involved pushing boundaries, maybe betraying allies, or executing some incredibly risky, morally questionable move that defied the expected norms, even for the Vaal.
Precisely. His victory wasn't just impressive, it was boundary pushing. He didn't just win, he won controversially. And the reason why his strategy was successful reveals a core defining truth about the force guiding the trials: chaos.
What was that metric? Why did it work?
It worked because it made chaos laugh. Success in the trial of chaos is not primarily about following rules or even pure quantifiable skill.
It's about amusement.
It's about amusement. It is about unpredictability, novelty, and often shock value. Doriani understood that chaos disdains predictability.
So success isn't really about skill or even cruelty, it's just about being an entertaining dirk. That seems like a fatal flaw in a system that claims to reward merit.
It's a fatal flaw for the civilization, perhaps, but not for chaos. If you are predictable, chaos has no use for you. Doriani didn't strive for perfection. He strived for a shocking novelty that resonated with the cosmic impulse. That divine laughter was his ticket to destiny.
And it defined his entire life as a quest to surprise a force that consumes all possibility.
Which means if his path to high power required pushing acceptable limits in the trial, then his path to the Empire's downfall, the ultimate, final act of the Vaal civilization, likely followed the exact same pattern.
Only on a grander, catastrophic scale, always aiming for that terrible cosmic amusement. And if the trials are the physical manifestation of chaos, then the trial master is its exhausted ancient servant. His direct testimony gives us the essential cosmic scale for this entire conflict.
He details his own background, noting he was once mortal and is now only a couple of thousand years old. This timeline places him firmly within the latter half of the Vaal era, or maybe shortly after, and his personal history is this devastating cautionary tale of hubris.
It mirrors the fate of countless others who believed they were exceptional.
Right, he connects his own downfall to challenging those of the Jinn who are associated with order. He admits that he believed he was exceptional and that his hubris was my own undoing, just as it was theirs. Several times, in fact.
He lost his mortality and his freedom because he challenged forces he didn't understand. He was seeking to forge his own destiny, but ended up enslaved by it instead.
And he now exists in an endless prison, serving chaos until the end. His servitude is absolute, defined by his inability to escape, even through death. And this is where the sheer, unyielding torment of his existence is revealed.
He says, I have escaped 1,000 different ways, and every time, chaos just brings me back from the paths in which my escape failed.
He is constantly reliving his own failure, perpetually reset to continue his torment.
That level of torment, to have your personal tragedy weaponized by a cosmic entity, that's a horror unlike anything else we've discussed. This resignation and suffering, it contrasts so sharply with his detached, often mocking facade.
But we see the specific raw pain when a remnant of his past life is mentioned. When the name Ixchel is used, his reaction is visceral. It breaks through that immortal shell.
What happens?
This is a moment of deep, devastating insight into his thousands of years of suffering. He just screams, "You mock me with remnants of a life long since turned to dust, with freedom and hope that can never be more than scraps of memory. Do not dare to insult me again."
So that name, Ixchel, that's clearly the key to his lost identity, his lost love, the source of his lost freedom. And chaos preserves that memory just enough to ensure his suffering never truly fades.
He is forced to attend to endless possibilities, while the ultimate hope of his original life is reduced to dust.
But perhaps the most terrifying revelation of the trial master's testimony is his perspective on reality and fate. It fundamentally undermines your sense of self and accomplishment.
It's a true quantum nightmare.
He casually dismisses our success entirely, claiming he is currently serving the other possibility where we are still alive. Wait, if he's serving the other possibility, what happened in the original? We need to unpack that.
From his primary fundamental reality, he tells us the truth. He slew you, then chaos bid me attend the other possibility, this one.
Oh, wait, you have to think about the implication there. The trial master remembers a reality, a history, a whole timeline where you are dead by his hand.
Exactly. This reality, the one you're currently experiencing, is nothing more than a side path that chaos decided to observe for amusement. It's a slight variation in the role of the cosmic die.
So we exist solely because chaos decided to be amused by this timeline, while in countless others we failed violently and just ceased to exist. How does that affect his worldview?
It creates a state of ultimate existential nihilism. He dismisses all accomplishment because if the outcome is merely dictated by which timeline chaos decides to observe, then everything you do is meaningless, just as everything Doriani ruined was equally meaningless.
Because in the infinite possibilities seen by chaos, victory and failure are just different outcomes. Neither is inherently better or more real than the last.
And his perpetual existence is a form of torture, forced to serve a God who views his entire existence and ours as just a momentary distraction.
The trial master is a direct representative of chaos, and through his unfiltered, agonizing perspective, we get this extraordinary definition of what this cosmic impulse even is.
It's the essence of all that might be. It's the flip of the coin, the roll of the die. It lives in the unknown, the unscripted moment.
And crucially, chaos disdains predictability. It's fundamentally neutral toward good or evil, winner or loser.
Right. Whether you win or lose, its purpose is served, because either outcome contributes to this infinite, unpredictable tapestry of possibility. It simply demands variance.
But what fascinatingly allows mortals to engage with this impulse, and this is the critical mechanism for the trial of chaos, is the concept that skill, intellect, and might can actually influence chance.
Yes, the trial master notes chaos is fascinated that skilled mortals can bend their chances in their own favor, because in the headwinds of the unknown, the arrow of a master falls more assuredly than the arrow of a novice.
So the randomness isn't arbitrary. It can be strategically manipulated by supreme competence and ruthlessness, like Doriani demonstrated.
If you're facing a 50-50 chance, chaos observes the moment. But if you possess superior skill, chaos is amused because you are tilting the scales of a fundamental law toward your favor. You are making the unlikely happen consistently.
And this is the concept that offers utmost freedom, according to the trial master.
The truth, according to chaos, is simple. Today is not special. You are not special unless you make yourself so. You earn your destiny by surprising chaos.
If you bring humor to chaos, fortune will rain upon you.
And if you fail, victory is meaningless, failure will be mocked. The system is harsh, but it's very clear.
And this constant, unpredictable, and potentially rewarding impulse is contrasted with its ancient opposing force, order.
And the trial master holds just immense disdain for order.
He describes order as a sinister force, a cowardly impulse that subtly tangles the threads of fate. So order doesn't seek to annihilate possibility entirely, but it seeks to reduce it, to funnel possibilities into safe, pre-approved pathways.
Tangles the threads. What does that mean in practical terms? Contrasting it with the explosive randomness of chaos.
Chaos is the flip of the coin. Order is rigging the coin so it always falls heads, but making it look like it was a fair toss.
Okay, I see.
Order seeks to bring together mortals for specific, predictable purposes, creating these cold, inevitable conflicts where the outcome serves a singular controlling structure. It wants things to be necessary, fixed, and predetermined. And this opposition has existed since the beginning of time.
And this brings us back to the Witch of Prophecy, Navali. She's often associated with foresight and fate, a key figure serving order.
Right, and the trial master insists she is a liar and a fraud. A servant of order, not because she sees the future, but because she only sees paths that have already been taken.
Her power isn't foresight, it's fading, painful memories of what happened in other, failed possibilities, paths that invariably led to doom. The trial master states she remembers what happened, and only what happened.
So when she prophesies doom, she isn't warning you about an upcoming event. She's describing a past reality where a similar path resulted in failure. She's limited by fixed historical outcomes.
While chaos is the engine of new possibility.
Exactly. Her prophecies are nothing more than painful memories of all the times she failed, the paths chaos rejected. She can't perceive the myriad of possibilities, the untaken routes, the way chaos does. This is why the trial master is so dismissive. You shouldn't entrust your fate to a senile old woman that can hardly keep herself awake.
Order's limitation is that it deals only in memory and inevitability, whereas chaos thrives on the immediate, terrifying unknown.
The ultimate implication, then, is that these two impulses, chaos and order, which are as unlike each other as any twins could ever be, they suffuse all who possess a will of their own. The inner struggle of life, the conflict of destiny versus choice, is this eternal cosmic conflict, raging since the beginning of time.
We established the brutal paradoxes, the deep philosophical complexity, and the technological supremacy of the Vaal civilization. But now we arrive at the most shocking revelation from the trial master.
And it fundamentally reframes their entire history and collapse.
It transforms them from a lesson in hubris into a testament to unimaginable sacrifice.
The trial master reveals that the eternal conflict between chaos and order, those two opposing cosmic twins, has been paused, interrupted, for a singular, terrible reason.
They have agreed to a narrow alliance against a rather existential crisis.
And this crisis is the threat of a dead world, a state of non-existence where there would be no possibility, so no amusement for chaos, and, crucially, no one left to enjoy the supposed fruits of order.
Even if such a realm would be perfectly controlled and fixed, its emptiness makes it unacceptable to both impulses. They need mortals and free will to exist, even if only to fight over them.
And this threat, this existential crisis, forces us to question the history we've been told about the Vaal's demise. We were led to believe they collapsed due to Doriani's hubris and the misuse of deadly corruption.
But the trial master tells a far more devastating immediate story, a story of mass, necessary self-immolation.
What is the shocking truth?
It's stated plainly, delivered by a man who has lived through countless doomed possibilities. We and I shudder to use that word. We already sacrificed all we had to buy this world one day of execution.
It only cost the lives of my entire people and everything they ever built.
But the weight of that statement is just staggering.
It wasn't a collapse, it was a choice.
This is the definitive recontextualization of the Vaal collapse.
Yeah.
The Vaal Empire did not simply fall into ruin due to internal rot. It executed a preemptive, total self-sacrifice to shield the world from this existential threat. They bought time for the other peoples of Ray class.
Which means the very mastery of corruption, the dark energy we discussed earlier, the one used in Queen Tetzalcoatl's rituals.
It was ultimately deployed in a massive final act of self-annihilation to save existence itself.
So the decaying temples, the cities, the ruins we see, they are not rotting monuments to hubris.
They are, as the trial master puts it, a legacy, a silent reminder of what was given so that the other peoples of Ray class might survive. They were not failures driven mad by power. They were martyrs.
They were executing a complex, necessary mechanism of planetary defense.
And this single act of collective self-annihilation required the advanced technology, the dark ritualism, and the mastering of deadly corruption, the very paradoxes of their society, to achieve the necessary, final, devastating mechanism. It took the combined, terrifying elements of their culture to save us all.
And the trial master concludes this terrible narrative by referencing the one-time survival was achieved through a different, even more horrifying path.
He says victory has only happened once out of countless possibilities that he has witnessed.
And that path was the ultimate horror.
The death of truth itself, the creation of a world of perfect order with no free will and no chaos, a world where fate is fixed, where there is no variance, and consequently no choice.
A world of perfect order is a world without the capacity to surprise or amuse chaos, and one without the capacity for mortals to truly choose. It is a sterile, controlled existence.
And the trial master is clear. That route to survival is unacceptable, both to my master and to mortals such as yourself. The ultimate cost of survival, if not self-sacrifice, might be the very essence of existence itself. So we've taken a journey through the true Vaal legacy. From their golden age defined by a brutal, paradox technological brilliance alongside terrifying corpse-harvesting rituals under Queen Tetzalcoatl, to your role as the reluctant strategic mentors of the Asmari.
We learned that their greatest strength, the mastering of the virtue gems, was the secret they guarded until they were forced to beg for refuge.
And, most significantly, through the agonizing testimony of the immortal trial master, we have witnessed the ultimate reframing of their downfall.
The Vaal Empire's collapse was not a failure of ambition, but a deliberate, total act of self-sacrifice, costing the lives of their entire people and everything they built, simply to delay an existential threat caused by the cosmic conflict between chaos and order.
Their ruins are literally a purchase on our current survival.
And this is across the ruined cities and endless possibilities. What will you sacrifice when the moment comes?
We know the devastating price of perfect order, and we know the cruelty of chaos, which is only moved by amusement and unpredictability.
So considering the trial master's testimony that skill can bend chance, and that all possibilities exist, including the one where you are already dead, how does that change the way you approach the challenges ahead? If your life is just one path among millions where you might have already failed, how much does that free you to pursue the impossible? To be the unique outcome that amuses a god?
All your tomorrows lie ahead of you, unknown and snarled to the very last.
But it is up to you to make yourself special enough to seize them.